Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. I stand by this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, in 2020, 15 people have been executed. In a year where we've already lost thousands of Americans to a deadly disease, we are still executing people who have well and able bodies. Today, I'm going to discuss why I believe the death penalty should be abolished. I think it is a form of cruel and unusual punishment. I think it is a waste of taxpayer money with no guarantee that our society is further protected, and it is an irreversible act. Lethal injection is currently the most common form of using of the death penalty. What normally happens is the patient is given a sedative, normally midazolam or Versed, a paralytic, normally Pavulon, and then finally potassium chloride to stop their heart. In a perfect world, this would then mean that the patient doesn't feel their death. However, there have been many botched cases where the inmates have been shown to heave and gasp for air as they're dying. This is painful. This is the last moments of their life. And I know that there will be people that disagree and think, well, people that are being sent to death have done horrible things to other people and, an eye for an eye. But we are supposed to be a civilized society. We cannot live by that standard. Phenobarbital has now been used as a substitute for Versed because of those side effects. However, we still don't know if they're feeling that death, even if they are, because that paralytic is given immediately afterwards. We don't know if they can feel that or not. If the dosage is slightly off, they're going to be awake. They're going to feel it, even if they can't react because the paralytic is taking effect. Hanging and the electric chair are also still utilized in other states. Hanging, of course, is its own form of pain. If the inmate doesn't die immediately, they're hanging with a broken neck, just waiting to be suffocated. And with the electric chair, there's zero sedative given. They are going to feel the entire current go through their body until they die. I don't think any of that is fair. However, I can understand how some people may think, well, if it reduces crime, such as murder, then isn't it worth it? But does it really keep the public safer? The death penalty could save millions of dollars by eliminating it. In a study in 2015, it was shown that in Washington, that death penalty cases cost $1 million more than similar cases in which the death penalty was not sought. Between 2004 and 2011, Kansas death penalty cases cost 4 times more than those that did not seek the death penalty. This money could be used in such a better way. It could be used for aid in the victims' families, for grief counseling, for funeral costs, for scholarships or grants for children of murder victims. It could also be used as resources to deter crime, such as early childhood education, providing programs that target at-risk youth to help graduate high school, and providing mental health services for juvenile detention centers. Now, money aside, is it really reducing crime? In a study done by a group that's trying to further abolish the death penalty, it was shown that police chiefs were asked their opinion on whether, on rate factors that help deter violent crime. They included curbing drug use, providing more officers on duty, longer sentencing, and drug control. The death penalty was ranked least effective. There is just zero evidence that capital punishment is more effective at reducing crime than life in prison. None. Now, if my first 2 arguments still have not convinced you that abolishing the death penalty would be a positive to our society, maybe this last one will. The totality of death cannot be reversed. This is an irreversible form of punishment. Due process is completely eliminated here. If any new information about a case or evidence occurs, that life can't be saved if the act has already been done. Since 1973, over 160 prisoners who have been sentenced to death row have been exonerated or released on the grounds of innocence. 160 people whose lives were at stake. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. But also, the people who have to take part in this execution are also affected mentally. We're human beings. Post-traumatic stress is very common for those who work in executions. This can lead to drug, alcohol abuse, PTSD. People will lose their jobs over these things because they've seen these horrible acts. They've watched somebody die. Sociologist Richard Moran witnessed an execution in 1985, and he was quoted saying, "I was an intruder, the only member of the public who had trespassed on a private moment of anguish. In my face, he could see the horror of his own death." This stays with people. This isn't something you can just see and move on from it. It's traumatic. And finally, this conclusive act does not honor the victims. It gives no justice to family members. I think that this is seen in TV shows and movies, and it looks like a form of justice, but it's really not. Because the reason that murder is the worst thing somebody can do is because in our society we view human life with value. We care about it. And so a state-authorized death is just as immoral as one committed outside the walls of confinement. I believe the death penalty is a form of cruel and unusual punishment. It's a waste of taxpayer funds with no guarantee of protecting our society, and it is irreversible. We live in a society of rules, and the act of murder deserves the highest form of punishment. But we also live in a society where murder is regarded as the worst possible thing because human life is valued and cherished. Capital punishment contradicts these two beliefs. And I think if you believe you can see both, you need to take a long, hard look in the mirror and decide if you truly value human life.